Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. I wanted to spend, it's been 5 weeks now, this is week 5 of my studying Japanese, and I wanted to talk a little bit this week about why Japanese. When I've told people in my family or friends or whatever that I'm learning Japanese, one of the first things that I get asked by most of them is, why Japanese? Why do you want to learn Japanese? Now, this is a pretty common question for anybody learning a language, especially in certain areas. So in most of the country, at least from my experience, in most of the country, the languages that everyone expects you to learn is either Spanish, or in some areas they expect you to be learning like German. In some rare instances, they would think you'd be more likely to learn like Mandarin, possibly Cantonese, but generally Mandarin. And there's a few reasons for that. So for Spanish and for Mandarin, those are the two most commonly spoken languages in the US, outside of English. So if I were to learn Spanish or Mandarin, or both, which, I mean, you know, that's one thing that I would like to do, then it would make me, you know, more marketable as an employee. It would, you know, open so many doors for me because I would know these languages that a lot of people in the area speak. Whereas with Japanese, there's not a whole lot of people at least in the area that I'm in, and in the areas that I've been to, there's not a lot of people that speak Japanese, if any. So why would I then learn Japanese? There's a few reasons for that. I did try learning Spanish for a little while. I've learned I looked into and learned a couple of phrases of Mandarin, and I started learning German a little bit. None of those languages, and one of the things that I think I've talked about is, when you're choosing a language to learn, do not choose it solely based on other people telling you, oh, but this language is spoken more, so you should learn this one. Don't do that. That's not a good reason to learn a language. I mean, it's a reason. Just, to me, that's not a good reason to learn a language. You shouldn't be learning a language, or if you're learning a language at all, it's because you want to learn a language. But the language that you choose should be based on what you want to learn, not what other people think you should learn, not what other people want you to learn, but what you want to learn. And that solely comes based off of what you like, what your preferences are. Now, for me, like I said, I started studying German. I was studying German for quite a while, actually. And that was because Anna's best friend's mother is German. She came over from Germany 20-something years ago or something like that. I don't remember the exact number. So she's originally from Germany. She speaks fluent German. So for me, I had somebody who I could possibly talk to in a little bit in German, and Kat's trying to get in, and that I could practice with. And I did for a little bit. And I would use a few phrases with her grandson, Anna's best friend's son. I would use a few German phrases on him because he would recognize him, because she was always talking to him in German. And she would, you know, correct me or praise me or different things like that. But I never got to the point where I was actually able to hold any sort of a conversation. Now, the reason that I've ended up falling off the bandwagon on so many languages that I've kind of started trying to learn or wanted to learn or anything like that is because my heart wasn't in it. I wanted to learn the language, but there was always something holding me back. And what I came to realize was that the thing that was holding me back was the first language that I had really ever tried to learn, which was Japanese. Every time that I would stop learning German or Chinese or whatever, even, wow, the cat really wants in here, was because I would all of a sudden realize I would rather be learning Japanese. what is it about Japanese that I like so much that makes me want to learn it? Now, there's really not a great answer to this question for me. There is something about the language that I really like. I like the sound of the language. I like the sound of all Asian languages, actually, is what I've come to realize. But I love the sound of Japanese. I love the way that it works. And also a big thing for me is I love the Japanese culture. That's a really big one to me. If you really, really love the French culture, maybe that's a clue that you should learn French. That should be the language that you pick. Because learning a language is part of that culture. It helps you be part of whatever culture it is that you love. You know? And that's what it is for me. I absolutely love the Japanese culture. I love, I love sake. I love anime. Everything about Japan just has always intrigued me. And just especially within the last few years, when I've kind of gotten out on my own and started doing my own thing, away from my hometown, away from my parents and everything, and then I got married and everything. Once I got kind of away from all that, that's when I really started to realize that I had a passion for the Japanese culture. Japanese food is amazing. I love Japanese food. And so that's one of the biggest reasons that Japanese is the language that I chose. Because I have such a huge passion for the culture and the language that's the one that I want to go with. Now, does that mean I don't have passions for the other languages, cultures? No, by no means. I have a passion for culture in general. Japan, just for whatever reason, is the one that sticks with me all the time, along with some of the other Asian cultures as well. And so that's why I chose to learn Japanese. I want to be a part of that culture. I want to be able to go to, in my case, in December, going back to Disney World. I want to be able to go to Epcot. I want to be able to go into the Japan Pavilion and to be able to have a conversation, really, however basic at the time, because, these last few weeks, my studying has just kind of tanked. Still studying, but it's just kind of tanked. But I want to be able to go in there and hold a conversation, no matter how basic, with the cast members that work there. Because they're all from Japan. And I want to be able to talk to them in their language. And so, now the cat's rubbing against my legs now that I let her in here. Okay. So, to me, a lot of people can get put off by people telling them, oh, well, you should be learning Spanish instead because you'll be able to use that more. Or you should learn, Mandarin instead because you'll be able to use that more and make you more marketable. To me, that kind of attitude can be really disheartening. And I know that I'm not the only one that feels this way. But when people come up to me, and it hasn't happened a huge amount recently, it's happened once or twice since I, started studying Japanese again. But when somebody comes up to you and they're like, oh, that thing that you're studying that you have this huge passion for, you shouldn't be studying that, you should be studying this because it's going to be more useful. That's just, I don't know, it really bothers me when people do that, because it's like, I mean, it's not your life, it's my life. And this is something that I want to do. You don't know why I'm learning the language. I could be learning Japanese because, it's a requirement for my job. Maybe I work, what if it was somebody who worked for Nintendo and they were supposed to be transferred up to, into a different position or something like that where they needed to know Japanese. You don't know. Or maybe that's what they're trying to do, is they're trying to get a job at, like, Nintendo of America in Washington as, like, a translator or an interpreter or something like that. You don't know that. So it's just one of those things that it just really bothers me when people do that. And I know that a lot of times it's not their intention to, come across as just... They don't always come across as being a kind of a jerk about it, but it can come across that way to somebody like me who has this passion for what I'm studying. And you then come up and tell me, oh, you shouldn't be doing that because it's not going to be useful. So, because, I mean, for me, I'm not doing it because it's going to be useful for me. I'm doing it because I love it. Because I love the language, I love the people, I love the culture. That's why I'm doing it. I'm not doing it because it's going to be useful. If I was doing it because wanted to do something that was going to be useful, yes, I would be studying Spanish and or Mandarin first. Maybe not only them, but those would be the ones that I'd be focusing on first, because those are the most useful in this country at this point in time. And because I have no plans to move to Japan or to work in Nintendo of America. So, to anybody out there who is also studying language, especially if you're studying something not of the norm, not that you would say, but like, the normal languages to study, at least in this country, generally are Spanish, French, German, Russian, and Italian. I think it's just the 5. Those are kind of the, and it's not only those 5. Like, you can study other languages. Those are generally the 5 kind of biggest ones that people study, or that people are encouraged to study as a second language. And that's great. Like, those are great languages to learn. But to anybody out there who is studying something else, maybe you're studying Arabic, maybe you're studying one of the Chinese dialects, Mandarin or Cantonese, maybe you're studying Mongolian, maybe you're studying Portuguese, which is just slightly lower on the list as opposed to those 5. Maybe you're learning Afrikaans, or you're learning what's the other language, that one from South Africa, Xhosa. Maybe you're learning that, or Swahili. If you're one of the people that's learning that language, if somebody comes up to you and says, "Oh, you shouldn't be learning that language, you should be learning Spanish, or you should be learning French, or Mandarin, or whatever," it's going to happen. You kind of just have to let it go. Yes, it's going to be discouraging. At least at first. I've gotten to the point now where people, if somebody were to come up and tell me, "Oh, you shouldn't be learning Japanese, you should be learning Spanish instead," my reaction to that is, "Okay, cool, bye." Because that's their opinion. They're entitled to their opinion. Doesn't have to become mine. Because there's an internal reason that I'm learning Japanese. And that is, like I said, because I have this huge passion for the culture, the language, and the people, and everything about it and them. So, hopefully, this was helpful for you guys. Like I said, it's when studying a language, really the biggest thing you should be doing is just figuring out, like I did, where your passion lies, where your heart lies with it. Don't just learn a language because, oh, that's what everybody else is learning, or that's going to be the most useful. Because if you do it that way, you'll be able to learn it, sure. But it's going to take a lot longer. There's a reason that I have already, even before restarting again, there's a reason that I already knew so many different idioms and phrases and different cultural things about the Japanese language before fully starting to learn it. And that is because I had such a passion for it. Because when you have a passion for, or a language that you have a passion for like this, you will just naturally pick it up. Why? Because you want to. Even subconsciously, your subconscious mind wants to learn it. So that's one of the biggest things that I can say, biggest kind of pieces of advice that I can give is, whatever language you pick, just make sure it's one that you have an actual passion for. If it's something that you're being, required to learn for work, cool. You're not gonna have a choice at that point, I guess. So, I guess you gotta do it. So, hopefully this was helpful for you guys, and I will see you all again next week. But until then, don't forget to thank the Phoenicians.
Let's get some sun, baby, it's time to go. All we need to put on is the radio. I can feel